Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session on MySQL AI on x86 servers, how you can run modern OLTP as well as AI and ML workloads on commodity hardware in your data centers or on the private cloud appliance. My name is Abhinav Agarwal, and I'm joined by Hananto Vichaksono. We are product managers for the Oracle MySQL product development group, and we are delighted that you could join this session. Before we begin, do take a minute to go over the safe harbor statement in case we talk about any functionality that is forward-looking. But let's get started. So modern data now comes not only in the form of structured data, which has long been the way data has been generated and been available, either through order information, finance information, CRM, HR information, invoices, and other things. But over the last few years, unstructured data and the need to be able to analyze and get information, ask questions, and get answers from this unstructured data has also been rising. Things such as phone call records from customer service, customer support interactions, social media interactions, whether it is product warranty information, product information that is available, or contract information that is available in PDF documents. Companies increasingly want to be able to ask questions of this data, which will help them resolve customer issues faster, help them create personalized recommendations for their users. And they want to be able to do all of this not only in a traditional structured query language fashion, but they also want to ask questions in natural language as if they were having a conversation with their data and have the system figure out everything behind the scenes and simply come back with the answers. Since we are talking about generative AI and in the context of MySQL AI, let's take a look at some of the things that are expected and required of any AI solution. The first one is the ability to do inferencing with LLMs. So an LLM is what allows you to ask questions and get answers in natural language. Now, there are public LLMs, but if you want to be able to use your company's data to ask questions of LLMs, a few things are required. The first one is if you're running this solution in your data center, then you don't want to connect to any cloud-based LLM. MySQL AI ships with an in-database LLM that runs on generic CPUs, does not require any GPUs, expensive hardware, customized hardware to run. AutoML becomes important, as we said in the previous slide, that you want to create recommendations and all. So whether you are doing classifications, regressions, if you have manufacturing log data and you want to do anomaly detection or time series forecasting, or simply create recommender systems, AutoML machine learning capabilities are important, and MySQL AI ships with AutoML. To bring your corporate data, your unstructured data, your documents and everything into your system and then be able to use it either with machine learning or with generative AI LLMs, you need to be able to create a vector. You need to vectorize your data and you need to be able to create it in a vector store. A vector store will contain the vector representation of your data and additional metadata that is required for you to efficiently query that data. MySQL AI comes with a fully automated vector store. Once you have the data available in your vector store, you want to ask questions of it. You want to run semantic searches on it. Now, semantic searches can be run on your vector data without using an LLM, but you can also use the results of your semantic queries and searches and send it to an LLM for further explanation, summarization, and so on. MySQL AI comes with a fully developed vector processing capability that allows you to do these semantic searches on your documents, but also use it in conjunction with the in-database LLM that MySQL AI ships with. And remember, we also talked about this increasing need where users want to use natural language to ask questions of your data and have the system figure out everything under the hoods, converting that natural language into SQL, running that SQL query, getting back the results and converting those results back into natural language. MySQL AI comes with a very strong, powerful, and capable NL to SQL engine and capabilities. And finally, you want all of these features and capabilities to be available from within a graphical user interface so that you don't have to all the time go to different command lines and interfaces to run these capabilities. So I talked about MySQL AI graphical user interface that is available within what we call the MySQL Studio. It is suitable for developers, for DBAs, for analysts, for data scientists, for everyone. This is the homepage of MySQL Studio, as you can see. And it, from the left-hand side, as you can see, it provides a simple, easy access to all the features that are available in MySQL AI. For example, I can browse my schema, I can browse the tables, I can look at the data that is available there, and I can run queries, your traditional SQL-based queries, and I can get the results either in the form of a table. I also get the information as to how long the query took to run, how many rows it returned, and so on. But if I want to visualize my results, I also have at my disposal data visualization tools that allow me to plot my data in as a bar chart, line chart, the pie chart, and so on. Talking about AI capabilities, right? I can go ahead and ask questions. I can simply with one click, click on the AI chat tab, and I am shown a chat interface, and I can start by asking it generic questions that are not related to my data. For example, what is my SQL? And at the top left corner, you can see it also shows me which is the LLM that it is using to run. And I ask questions and I get answers. And finally, if I want to create notebooks, and notebooks are a very flexible and powerful way of building entire applications and workflows, and you can not only create them using Python, for example, but you can also see the results in a very interactive manner. You can share these notebooks with other people who can also run through these notebooks and get the output as the notebook runs. You can save these notebooks, you can share them all from within the MySQL Studio interface. We have been talking about generative AI and vector store capabilities. You also saw an example of that in the screenshots earlier. Let us take a closer look now at what these generative AI capabilities are. LLMs typically perform three tasks. You can use them to create content, as in you ask a question and it will give you an answer. You can use it to summarize. You can send it a PDF document, for example, or any other document and ask it to summarize it in, say, 50 words, 100 words in the form of bullets and so on. And it does a wonderful job of it. And the third use case for LLMs is if the content is in English and you choose to ask a question in another language, you can do that and it returns the results in the language of your choice. So these are the generic capabilities of LLMs. Now, if you want to use your company's data, then you need to use something called retrieval augmented generation, which takes the data that you tell it, creates a prompt out of it, sends it to the LLM as a context. So the LLM knows that it has to answer questions based on the context of the data that you have provided and returns back the answers. While you can use SQL statements and you can make use of all of MySQL AI's machine learning and generative AI functions and stored procedures, an easier way is to use natural language conversations to ask questions. And these natural language conversations can be multilingual in all the languages that MySQL AI supports. So you don't need to then now use the SQL queries to ask these questions. And finally, you have the synergy between generative AI capabilities and machine learning, which means that you can, for example, run a machine learning task such as anomaly detection or regression, get the results and send just those results to the LLM and ask it to explain them. Now, this can be very useful when you have a lot of data that you're working with and you want to make sense of an anomaly, for instance, without having to actually go through and read machine generated logs, which can take a lot of time. So this not only reduces costs, but you get faster results and more accurate results by using this combination of Gen AI and Auto ML. We talked about the fact that vector store creation is one of the fundamental steps towards making the fullest use of generative AI capabilities. Now, traditionally, if you had to take your documents, whether they are 10, 100,000 documents, and convert them into a vector store, you would generally speaking, have to go through all of these steps from parsing the data, creating the segments, selecting an embedding model, creating the embeddings, designing the vector store, and then actually creating the embeddings and the vector store metadata along with it. Similarly, once you had a vector store and you wanted to use it with an LLM, you would have to go through all of these steps. What MySQL AI does is collapses and encapsulates all of these things that you have to do under the hoods with one simple call. At the top, if you see this one simple call of a vector store load is going to go ahead, take the documents from your file system, give it any options that you want to, and these are strictly speaking, options, optional options, so to say, and it will create a vector store with one call. One document or 100 documents doesn't matter. Similarly, once you have your vector store, you can ask it a question in natural language, and MySQL AI is going to convert this into an embedding. Use the data that you provided, and then run the query and get back the result in the variable called NL response. Now, a few other details out here, since I have your attention, that you might ask, what if my data is in my file system and don't I require my documents to be in the object store in the cloud? No, the answer is that, remember we said MySQL AI runs in your data center. It doesn't connect to the cloud, which means that if your documents are on a file system, and as I said, we support multiple formats of files such as HTML, PDF, Word documents, text documents, even PowerPoint presentations. You can take all of them and load them into your vector store. Using the in-database LLM, we take the vectorized data and you can run machine learning algorithms. You can use the MySQL Studio to interact with your data. You can run queries, create notebooks, or use natural language to ask your questions. Now, with respect to semantic searches using standard SQL functions and queries, we support vector distance functions, which basically look at the semantic meaning of the word that you're using, and within your vector space, what matches most closely. And you can use a variety of vector functions like vector distance, string to vector, and so on. And different options when it comes to actually measuring the distance that we'll not get into the details of. And this vector processing is parallelized and happens in memory, which means it is very, very fast because vector processing is typically both a compute and a memory intensive operation. And for faster retrieval, we also support vector indexes, which become very critical as the size of your vector store starts to increase beyond a certain threshold. So I said that loading the documents is one click. Now, if you look at this screenshot, you will see that I am browsing my file system and selecting the documents that I want to ingest into my vector store. If you see below, I have specified what the name of my schema is and the table where my vector store data should be loaded. That's all I need to do. And if I don't even want to provide the table name of my vector store, I can leave it blank, and MySQL AI is going to go ahead and auto-generate a table name for me. And I click load, and my vector store is created and loaded. Now, based on the data that I have loaded, for example, now that I go ahead and start to ask it a question, tell me about Oracle's FY26 financial results. These are fairly new. So for instance, Q2 results may not be available in standard public LLMs, but because you have uploaded this data as a document to your vector store, you can now ask questions and you will get the most accurate, up-to-date answers from MySQL AI. Here's another example where you as a student want to come up with a course schedule based on your interests, your subjects, but you also have certain limitations and constraints. For example, you don't want to have classes on, say, Mondays or Tuesdays or Thursdays. You can only have classes you want to have enroll in classes only on a few days a week, and that too not at 6 a.m. or not at 9 p.m. You want to have a very short window between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. when you want to have these classes. If the course descriptions, the course contents, the course schedules and timetables are available and they have been uploaded into the vector store, it becomes a straightforward question of asking task of asking this question and having MySQL come up with a generated schedule table that says here are the courses, here are the descriptions, and here are the timings when the courses are offered. For the next part of the presentation, where we talk about MySQL AI's AutoML machine learning capabilities, natural language to SQL capabilities that we have talked about in more detail. And I'm sure you also have a question as to what are the hardware requirements for running MySQL AI, since we have said this runs on premises and this runs on commodity hardware. Hold on just a few more minutes. We will be covering all of that. So over to you, Hananto.
Thank you, Abhinav. Everyone, okay, this is my part. I'm going to explain about MySQL AI AutoMLs. So AutoMLs is one of the cool features in MySQL AI. Okay, so it's available in MySQL AI out of the box with built-in machine learning pipeline using SQL commands. And MySQL AI AutoMLs for predictive analytics automates machine learning processing, starting from trainings and explanations, as well as using ML model to predict or doing the inference. Once you complete your data preparations and feature engineering, you can run ML trains to train your dataset to generate ML models. With AutoMLs, you can quickly build predictive models with minimal manual effort. So AutoML automates model selection and tuning, helping you get to accurate results faster. And this makes it easier for your team to deliver predictive analytics ML models at scales with less ML expertise. While ML Train provides you with ML models, another one, which is ML Explains, can we go back to the previous slide? Yes. Provides model explainability by showing the key factors driving each predictions, helping users understand and trust the results. Then integrate ML models to applications via REST API or directly run through SQL. And then build deeper insight with guided discovery using ML predictions to uncover hidden patterns and anomalies. Next slide, please. Okay, this slide basically talk about machine learning horizontal use cases. Okay, we have use case in customers, product, equipment, and financial. In customers machine learning use case, okay, we can use MLs to do a segmentation of the customers, predict loyalty and lifetime value, improve retention or churns and acquisitions, optimize lead generation and prioritizations, identify traits of best customers, and detect invoice anomalies and frauds. For product MLs use cases, we can use MLs, auto MLs to recommend next best offers, drive cross-selling or upsells and bundling, and forecast demand, inventory, and revenue. For equipment, okay, we can use auto MLs to enable predictive maintenance, support root cause analytics, forecast demand, and detect usage or sensor anomalies and assess failure risks. In financials, we can use AutoML to forecast financial performance, assess credit risk, predict cash flows and payments, prevent frauds, and optimize resource allocations. Next slide, please. This slide talk about typical AutoML model types. MySQL AI AutoML supports supervised learning, semi-supervised learning, as well as unsupervised learning. On supervised learning, we support classifications as well as regressions, and we also support time series forecasting. On semi-supervised learning and unsupervised learning, we use anomaly detection algorithm that support anomaly detections algorithms such as PCA, KKNN, and GLOF. For recommender systems, we can use this for supervised learning as well as semi-supervised learning as well. If you train on label outcomes like ratings, for example, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star, or implicit feedback treated as a label, then it is a supervised learning. But we can use recommender system as semi-supervised as many classic recommender methods like collaborative filtering or matrix factorization are sometimes described as unsupervised because they can learn from interaction rather than explicit labels. Next slide, please. So again, MySQL Studios also provides good environment to run AutoMLs. We can run AutoMLs using SQL command by calling SQL procedures. okay, like ML train, ML explains, and ML predict, or we can run a Jupyter Notebook compatibles, Jupyter Notebook Pythons, letting you to build and iterate on model interactively using things that you are familiar as a data scientist, which is, notebook workflows. Next, please. This is NL to SQL. It is a features where we can convert natural language input into SQL queries automatically and execute SQL queries. Next, please. Okay, this NL to SQL basically will provide you with, capability to interact with the data inside database, a MySQL database using natural language, where you can use, natural language queries, and inside it will create augmented prompts using, using enrich by information that NL2SQL got from the database schema metadata that retrieve from the MySQL's information schemas. Then I know it use LLM basically to do SQL syntax generations as well as SQL syntax validations, then execute SQL to generate the query result. Next slide. NL2SQL can run on MySQL Studio. In fact, we can use MySQL Studio to generate a query from natural language natural language queries. Okay, we can, it can help us to, create the SQL language, SQL statements by using natural language. Then MySQL Studio will provide us with SQL command, and we can open SQL Workshop, then paste the SQL command generated over there, and then execute to get the results. Next slide, please. And also SQL also can run on VS Code. Okay, we can install MySQL shell extension for VS Code. Okay, then we open the extension, the MySQL shell extension on VS Code, and runs the natural language query by using \NL, standard from natural language, and then followed by natural language query. Then VS Code will give us query statements. Then we can copy and paste the query statements to execute the query to get the result. Next slide, please. And MySQL shell. Yeah, if you're using MySQL shell, then we need to call the NL2SQL procedures directly. Okay, call sys.nl.sql _SQL, and then followed by query, natural language query, and some options. Then we can get the SQL statements as well as the result when after the SQL statement being executed automatically by NL2SQL package. Next slide, please. Okay, MySQL AI runs on x86 servers. So it can run on any commodity servers based on x86 architecture. And also it can run on Oracle hardware such as Oracle Private Cloud Appliance or PCA. And it is running on top of CPU, so no GPU is needed over here. And you can run it on top of, bare metals or VMs that runs Oracle Linux 8 or Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. So we support 2 operating systems over here with either Oracle Linux 8 or Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. There is a hardware requirement, minimum hardware requirement, which is 32 logical or virtual CPU cores, 128 gigabyte memory, and 512 gigabyte disk capacities. However, this minimum requirement can be bypassed if you have a lesser server capacity by installing MySQL AI binary with, ignore prerequisite check during the binary installation and so on. But we always suggest you can, you install the MySQL AI on top of at least minimum server configurations. Last but not least, I invite everyone actually to try download MySQL AI today and run it on your Linux machines and get our hand dirty to run AI and ML, empowering our OLTP application that running on MySQL database with AI and ML workload. Back to you, Abhinav. Your voice is not clear. Okay, you are on mute.
I was talking on mute. My apologies. Thank you, Hananto, for those wonderful slides. And I hope everyone got a good sense of what MySQL AI is, what are the capabilities it offers. And best of all, it runs, as you said, on commodity hardware, in your data center, on CPUs, on the Oracle Private Cloud appliance. So suggest, as Hananto said, you can go ahead, try it out. You can download MySQL AI, give it a try, and I'm sure you will love all the capabilities that it has to offer. Thank you for joining and thank you for listening. I am
Thank
Abhinav
you.
and I've been joined by Hananto.
Thank you, everyone.